Welcome to the Be Dadly podcast, where we discuss all things dadly, from being an entrepreneur while caring for toddlers to raising screenagers and talking the birds and the bees. We're here to help you traverse the vast and dynamic landscape of fatherhood. Enjoy practical advice, lots of puns, and even a few heart-touching moments.
And the dad jokes are pretty good too.
And now your host, Brandon Jones.
All right. Welcome, listeners. Welcome to the Be Dadly podcast. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I am really excited about the guests we have today. We're already having a ton of fun offline here. It's going to be really, really good. I want to encourage you, please do subscribe and leave us a review. And if you can, make it a written review because it really does help us so much. So today, with that out of the way, today we have on the podcast Jaz Davis, and he was connected to me through a mutual friend. And I'll tell you a little bit about Jaz before we get started. So Jaz is an airbrush illustrator. He's a muralist and a designer with 20 years of experience. His artwork can literally be found from coast to coast through life-size murals on freight trucks, commissioned works on canvas, and custom feature designs created for the water parks and film industry. He began his career in 2001 in New York City in the art district of Canal Street and worked his way west, apprenticing for established industry professionals and learning the tricks of the trade. Currently, he is specializing in the discipline of digital sculpting and focusing on the artistic enrichment of the surrounding community. He takes every opportunity to pass on this valuable knowledge to young people and hoping to one day kill the stigma that art isn't a real job. I love that, Jaz. Jaz spent several years traveling the U.S., living in and creating art in places like Shreveport, New York City, Honolulu, Hawaii, and Oakland, California. And he currently resides in Austin, Texas. That's a bio off of his website. And Jaz, what I love is the dichotomy between the art side of you and what I'm about to say next. Jaz also will train you on how to use a firearm. He runs a company called American Ride, which is a defense solution company. And he states it as a defensive lifestyle company, which I absolutely love. And one thing I also want to highlight is you had on the bottom of one of your websites, powered by Jesus Christ.
Yes, sir.
And so it was very apparent to me, your faith is really an important part of who you are and what you do. And so I just love that so much. Thank you so much, Jaz, for being on the show.
And thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely, man. Tell us a little bit about this dichotomy too, real quick, about you're an artist and then you're also this military vet. What's that like?
Right. So it always trips people out because they say, what do you do for a living, man? And I'm like, oh, I'm an artist and I'm a firearms instructor. And they're like, what? Like, those two don't mix, but I'm like, why not? Because it's a defensive lifestyle company, meaning that we live a defensive lifestyle. You have to be ready 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's more along the lines of something that I do, but an artist is who I am. So it translates to both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is interesting. Like I do think of artist as kind of being, and it's hard to pigeonhole an artist, right? Because
I know what you're gonna say. Like think about the Halloween costumes when you pick artists where they have the beret, and the smock. Why is that America? Why is that the only Halloween costume for artists? We don't all look like that. Stop. We don't all. Sometimes we look like this. Like, come on, man. Yeah.
And you also
expects me to be all like earthy and just kind of. And I guess I am to an extent, but I still am very conservative, and I take life very seriously at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's maybe the mix. That's the stretch is the conservative artist. So tell us a little bit about American Ride. What's that like training people on firearms?
Okay, so the company is called American Ride Defensive Solutions, and just a little bit about the name that I really love because I didn't create it. I have a business partner. His name's Rio Wheeler. Rio Wheeler is the dude's fantastic, man. He's when it comes to knowledge of like tracking animals and really respecting the land as a hunter, man, that dude is way up there in my book, man. I've learned so much from him. But he said we should call the company American Ride. I was like TV show? He was like, yeah, but not really. He said, because we're all along for the American ride, whether we like it or not. If you live here, you on the American ride, you know? So it's like, man, that makes so much sense, man. So it's American Ride Defensive Solutions. People think, and I hope we get into this today, because there's such a negative stigma around firearms in general, like guns are bad and, you know, they go off for no reason, all kind of stuff, right? And so defensive solutions are different for different people. Your defensive solution may be different from my defensive solution. And so that's why we wanted to encompass everything firearms. So we're not just firearms instructors. So we're NRA and USCCA licensed certified firearms instructors. But aside from that, because we're artists, part of your defensive solution may be like, hey, I'd like my gun to match my aesthetic, or I'd like for my firearm to match my mood, my lifestyle, right? So we do that. We make gun-related furniture, so gun cabinets, and always about the art, because like I said, that's who I am. The guns is just what I do. So depending on what you come to us for, your defensive solution may be different. I'll give you an example. And this is another thing that we really pride ourselves on. We don't teach tactical, we teach practical. You're not going to be rolling outside your car and, you know, doing some Ranger rolls and picking some guys up and throwing them over your shoulder. You might, but it's more likely that you're going to be defending your children or your wife or your home, right? And so we teach practical. So we take that tactical mindset and break it down to something easy to understand, and so that it's practical for your use. And so that is your defensive solution.
That's great. You know, what's funny is it made me immediately think of my mother. My mother has an AR-15.
Yeah.
And it is not like
good
what
choice.
anybody ever pictures her AR-15. It is bright pink.
Yep.
And it has on the barrel, it has this curled a heat shield that's kind of got these like curls, and it's very feminine. And she also has a pistol that is, it almost looks like it's been what's that paint that's kind of chameleon color? It's got almost like a rainbow effect. It's got like a finish. The chameleon.
On it. It's when you take the metallics, they have pearls in them, so they don't allow the paint to lay down flat. So yes, it is a chameleon. It changes from one color to the.
Yeah. So on one angle it looks purple, and the other angle it looks green. And I'm always like, Mom, you have the flashiest weapons. It is right. Absolutely hilarious. I found out recently.
If you think about, like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like that's so important that you said that, because first off, people think, oh, women in AR-15s, like, oh, that doesn't make any kind of sense. It's easier to shoot a rifle than a pistol, so there's that. They're great for home defense, but a gun snob, so thinking of the opposite side of the people who are really into guns, say, oh, well, you shouldn't have a flashy firearm because that helps your enemies to see you better and all that kind of stuff. That's her defensive solution. It doesn't matter what you like. It needs to fit her. It needs to be proper for her. And she can probably shoot that better than your big, black, basic, you know what I mean? So it's very important that people have their own look, style, feel. Now, granted, that's probably not the best thing to have out in the field, but she's not out in the field.
She's not out in the field.
Right. You know? Yeah. Man.
Yeah, so she,
you keep that gun, man. Tell your mom I want to go shoot with her, man. Maybe she'll let me shoot it.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's a trip. We got to get some video with her. She is so funny about it. You know, I think she cares for it a little differently because it's personalized.
Right.
You know, she connects, like you said, she connects with it. I recently found out
when it's personalized, you will actually practice more. We found our studies show that when you personalize it, you'll practice more. You spend more time cleaning it. You learn the functionality of it versus just something that's just this alien foreign object, you know?
I recently found out a really cool fact about one of my pistols. I found out I have the John Wick pistol. Now, I didn't buy it. I bought it before John Wick, but I've got the HK P30L, and he carries that. And so I'm sitting there. I was like, I watch the show. Oh, that's my pistol.
my gun.
I get excited about that. I'm like, I got John Wick style. That's me. But dude, I love firearms. I grew up in a house where we had them growing up, and I have a partner that heard in my view on the guns a little differently, but mainly because she grew up in a house where they didn't have one.
Right.
And she's terrified of our younger son having trouble with, it being in the home and things like that. But for me, I'm like, the problem with firearms is education. It's that people are not educated. And I grew up in a house where we learned early on about the firearm. My dad repeated my entire life, a gun is always loaded. Funny story. And this will get the listeners laughing. This is so funny. I have a Uncle Mike. He's passed. He's gone now, but his name is Mike Jones. He used to always love that. Who? Who? Yeah, Mike Jones. Yeah. So anyways, my Uncle Mike, he's so funny. I go to Louisiana to go visit him, and I have a BMW M3. And he was so excited when he saw it. He's like, what is this? You drive a BMW? I said, yeah, it's, I love this car. He says, you got to give me a ride. I said, okay. And I said, where do you want to go? He said, the corner store. He just wanted to go get a beer.
Right.
So he says, I'm telling you, he's a Louisiana redneck. So anyways, he says, take me to the corner store. I said, okay. He comes walking out of the house. He's got a pistol on his side. I said, well, whoa. We don't need to carry that. I said, we're going to get a beer. Don't worry. We're good. We got stuff in the car. You don't need your pistol on your side. And he goes, well, I'm only going to not take it because it's your car. I'm going to respect your wishes. It's your car.
Right.
So I said, okay, great. So we get to driving down the road. We're about a mile down the road. And I see him reaching into his ankle, he pulls out a pistol and he puts it in my glove box. I said, hey.
That's the backup gun, man.
I said, hey, I said no pistol. He said, that's not a pistol. That's my backup.
Yeah. It was a revolver.
He didn't even classify it the same. He's like, no, that's not a pistol. And we grew up with one is none and two is one kind of mentality.
Right. Yeah. Me too, man. I've always been taught that your backup gun should be bigger than your first gun because obviously your first gun didn't work. So
that's good.
People been doing it wrong for years, man.
He would have loved that
on the ankle, Yeah,
he would have loved that. I'm telling you.
Where y'all from in Louisiana, man?
Baton Rouge.
So my parents live in Louisiana. So my dad is Chief Warrant Officer Spencer, man. He's the head of the ROTC program in Mansfield, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And my mom works for the library in Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And so I go to Louisiana all the time, man. I'm trying to get some boudin and some down home.
Oh, yeah.
Man, they won't even sell down home anywhere. I'm so glad, though, because it keeps it pure, Yep. So I actually just came back from Louisiana about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was out there doing an art project for the Tourism Bureau. Mm-hmm. And so they hire me on occasion to come out and, restore some of their projects around town. And so I actually just came back from there, but it's a different mentality with firearms in Louisiana than it is in other places, definitely.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So I grew up, a lot of my uncles are locksmiths. So and one of the things that we did is after Katrina, I actually moved down there to help my uncles out with some locksmithing work. And I learned a trade. I ended up getting licensed as a locksmith. So I can open your house up for you if you need me to.
Yeah, man, we need to talk.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. I'm a good guy to have around. I'll say that when it comes to the
value
thing. And and I do keep quite a bit of supplies at my house. I'm one of those. I'm a prepared individual. I like a lot of water, a lot of food.
Talk. That sounds like a defense. Hey, that sounds like a defensive solution class we need to have right there, man.
Yep. Yeah. So my house is set up. I've got a bug out bag, and I'm all the way. But one of the things we did in Louisiana is whenever it flooded, and you'll get a kick out of this, man. They say military intelligence is an oxymoron, and I hate to crack on the military because they do so many things well. But one of the choices they made in Louisiana, which My uncle is a hardcore old school. Like he likes to keep things in a journal. He didn't like when we went to technology. He's like, happens when your phone fries? What happens? You keep things on paper for a reason. We have papers that go back, centuries, right? So he's like, why would we ever just go to this just because it's the new fad? He doesn't like that at all. And one of the things he also likes is manual locks. And in Louisiana, the armory was sealed with electronic locks that were not waterproof.
Oh.
Now that is kind of shocking for a city that is under the water line.
Oh.
And when the levee gave way, all of the base down there, the armory sealed itself. And so did all of their cabinets and files and all of these various things. They actually sealed with these electronic, I think they were called simplex electronic dial locks. And now they were supported by they're reinforced, and everything has a rating. So you have like how many hours it takes you to break into something, how much manpower, what kind of, whether it's torch resistant or saw resistant. You have all these different ratings. They had some of the max ratings, but they had a lock that was no good. And so what ended up happening is we went down there and spent so much time opening safes for the military. And we got contracted by FEMA to go and do a lot of work, a lot of the disaster work for all kinds of different companies, including things like CVS. We were helping their ATMs and stuff like that, recapture money for different companies and stuff because their ATMs were locked. And anyways, it was a fascinating journey for me as a young man.
I bet, man. Yeah, we definitely have to talk about that. That's so we do a lot of in-home security evaluations where we actually come to your house and test out your security and see what's lacking. And there is a NRA class. It's called Refuse to be a Victim. That kind of sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I would get man, I don't want to end it. I'm just going to let it roll till it stops. I can't see the screen right now.
No worries.
I get a lot of those 1-800 calls. And, I'm getting one right now, and I don't want to hit it because I'll probably kill the Zoom or something like that. But
right.
I'll give it a second. And should I? There we go. We're back. So I guess timeout, right? Should I motion before I'm blow my nose? It looks like I'm doing a line of coke over here every time I go. Every time I go down, should I let you know or something? So make it easier to chop it up?
Yeah, totally. You can let John know, hey, nose blow, and we pause, we'll give a long pause, and then we'll come back.
I'll start putting the finger up or something so that way we can, because I admit a couple of times you were in the middle of, I'm like, man, how's he going to fix that? Because it was right in the middle of what are you saying, So I had to put a disclaimer on there, not doing coke. That's what you should put on the screen. Not doing coke.
Jaz Davis, it was allergies, not doing coke.
That's what it should say. Not doing coke.
I think people listen to that one.
Yeah, they probably
I got to hear how did that come about?
Yeah, right.
We said he was an artist, but we didn't go that far.
Yeah, them artists, they all do drugs,
Yeah, so, exactly. More stereotypes.
Oh man, you ain't lying, man. No, I had that journey in life, definitely. But no, I'm 100% sober. But yeah, I figured I'll start holding my hand. Matter of fact, let me get one real quick.
Go for it. That's something we also have in common. Is I went sober again recently. I guess it's been about 2 months, but prior to that, I've gone like a year. I like to test my will, and it's mainly around alcohol. It's not that I was an alcoholic by any means. As a matter of fact, many people that drink with me like, Brandon, you drank like on the weekends. Like, come on, dude. But I decided it just wasn't serving me any longer. And what would also happen is that the next day after drinking, or maybe even 2 days after, my neurotransmitters, and my serotonin levels and all these different things were messed up, and I would find myself overreacting, or it was just too long after. Hey, yeah, I got that night, but it cost me a day and a half or 2 days later for me to get myself back. And I don't know that the risk and the reward is there. And plus, now that I go hang out with friends sober, I have more energy. I feel more alive. I've just given it up, man. And it's been a great thing for me.
If people it's up to them to figure out where drugs fit in their life or don't fit and all that kind of stuff. I don't look down on anybody because I have been the worst of the worst, you know, and I guess we can tell this story, right? So it kind of bridges why I became a firearm instructor along with my whole past drug life, right? So, man, just so much to it, man. It depends on how deep you want to go with it, but I'll give you the shorter version of the whole thing, right? But when I was 16, my mom had a gun held to her head. And so I actually ended up between that gun and my mom and struggled with the individual. My mom, I mean, I never seen her eyes so big in my life, but I told her, I was like, go, I got this, go. And I'm 16, you know, she leaves, we struggle. And I remember looking down the barrel of his revolver and I can see the round in the chamber and wrestled with him, got him to stop. And he was on pretty much everything. He just wasn't there as a person. And he leaves. And he just says, I'm sorry. And he just walks out of my house real slow. And so rather, it's a good, you know, it sounds like a terrible story, but it's actually a positive. And it's just funny how God will send you through some things to kind of help other people. And so rather than being afraid of guns, my mom went and got training. My mom to shoot. My mom became a defender. So my mom's like Wonder Woman, right? So I really respect her for that. And she didn't treat the guns like forbidden fruit. She was like, look, this is a gun. This is why you don't touch it. So I look at things differently. My mom could have taken that situation, and my mom's super sober. Like she's never been a user of anything, right? And she could have taken that situation like, man, I'm scared of guns and I'm just cowering in myself. No, she did the opposite. Well, the other side of that story is that it took the police about half hour, maybe 45 minutes to get there. And that does not say anything bad about the police. I love the police. I'm 100% for our defenders, man. I thank them for putting their life on the line every day. Matter of fact, if you are first responder, third responder, fifth responder, shout out to you because I love you, man. Mm-hmm. But we got bad service that day. He didn't fill out a report, actually. Not too much happened. But nobody's coming to help you. And so that's part of why I do what I do, right? Because nobody's coming to help you. The only person that's with you all the time is you. And that's why it's your responsibility to get training. So that happened. Served in the Air Force. My wife and I, we were traveling down the road one night. We went to go see a friend. And it was a narrow road. We lived in North Carolina. Narrow road, guy walking on the side of the road. I went way around him, but in his mind, I tried to run him over. So he followed us to the house we went to. He broke in and tried to kill us both with a knife. Now we're at a friend's house. The guy beats on the door, boom, boom, boom. He looks at me, I look at him. He's like, you expecting somebody? I'm like, how do you live here? What you mean? I expect somebody? Like, I don't know who that is. He goes to the door and he puts his hand on the door like to turn the handle. And when he does, that's when the guy just burst in. Jagged knife looked like it was made out of tin cans. Like it was a really terrible looking knife. And he lunged at me. There was a table between the two of us. And as I tell this story, I laugh. And people are like, how can you laugh about that? I'm like, man, because God was so merciful to me. I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for him, you know. Now, I didn't own a gun at the time, even though I was in the military. I didn't know anything about shooting. I was like most people. You think you know what you're going to do, but you really don't know what you're going to do. He lunged a couple times. Nothing but the grace of God kept the table between the two of us. I got beat up pretty good that night, but he didn't cut me. Who wants to get beat up in front of their spouse, right? Nobody. So that was a terrible experience. So there's my next time when nobody came to help. The guy that broke in, my friend, you know, he was standing by the door. Well, he's behind the guy, right? So you think, why didn't he help? That guy ran out into the middle of the night. Help! Help! You should have seen him screaming, help! Middle of the night. Nobody came to help us. So again, I found myself between a projectile and somebody that I love. So man, this sucks. So he's like, what does this have to do with drugs? Well, he was on drugs, obviously. When I got out of the military, I was a complete wreck, man. I was on all kinds of drugs. I was an alcoholic. Man, I did some of everything, man. So I'm telling you now, America, if John ain't successful in cutting it out, I'm not doing coke. When I go to the side, I'm trying to blow my nose because I got allergies, right? I promise I'm sober. I promise I'm sober.
You had to take a Claritin. You had to take a Claritin right before the call.
Yeah, I know. See, that's my proof right there. But when I got out of the military, I was such a wreck. I was on all kind of stuff, right? And so I remember uh, that I was in such a bad place, I became suicidal. And I actually attempted to take my own life several times. I'd walk out in the traffic and I've overdosed several times. I was in a real bad place. So I'm in New York. I lived in Manhattan. I went outside to smoke a cigarette on my stoop. And I said, man, I want to die today. And before I could get today out of my mouth and light that cigarette, and this guy turned the corner, ran up on my stoop, gun in his waist. He's like, yo, son, what you doing looking at me? I was like, what? Like terrified. I didn't even expect any of that. This guy was going to kill me because I was looking at him.
Mm-hmm.
So here I am, terrified, never been so scared in my life. I cower, I'm looking down, I'm like, man, I was looking at you. I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm just terrified. I'm crying. I just knew my life was over. It's funny how God says, oh, you want to die? Okay, here you go. And uses those things to change your mind to help other people. And so I'm terrified. I cowered to the point I'm in the corner. I just knew I'm about to die. I opened my eyes and the guy's not there. That's when I decided I didn't want to be a victim anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I was done. From that day forward, I began training, learning to fight. I was super non-confrontational. Didn't want any issues in my life, which is how most people always come to things, right? And I'm glad I don't have any of those situations because I wouldn't have known what to do either. I would have went to jail or I would have died. But that's when I started learning and training and learning to shoot and all these other things. And so going back to the defensive mindset, we train your mind before we train anything else. That's a big reason why I do what I do. I've got, without going into too much detail, I've got friends who have been taken. I've got friends who have had some really bad situations happen to them because they didn't have a way or the mindset to defend themselves. And it just shouldn't be that way, you know? It shouldn't be that way. And if I can help somebody just by giving them some information, I can't tell you how many free gun safety courses we do. If someone needs the training and they just can't afford it, call me. Put the number on there and call me right now, man. If you are in the Austin area and you are afraid of guns, and you just really need to understand how they work, call me, man. We do free training all the time. I'm happy to do that. Now, we don't train bad guys. That's another thing we pride ourselves on, right? If you think about it. Anybody with money can go to a gun range, right? You can go to a gun range, shoot and do whatever and learn whatever, right? But you have no way of telling who they are. So we have a private range in San Marcos, and we don't invite everybody to our training. Not everybody with money can take our training. Our training is not for everybody. I don't care if you don't like that. We don't train bad guys. When you call, we vet you. If you want training, we vet you. So I'm like, yeah, tell them to call me if they want free training. I'm going to call and figure out why you want it. So if you are a drama-filled person and you brought this drama upon yourself, no, you don't get training just because you messed up and now you need some help. But if you truly need it and you're coming from a pure place, then we'll do anything we can to help you. And that's really important. And I don't know of any gun companies doing that.
That's beautiful, man. I want to switch gears to the dad stuff real quick.
Let's do that.
I'm going to segue it with this. I love this definition of a hero. I was turned on to this by Brian Johnson. He said a hero is defined by a person who has the strength for two. It's just the ability to carry your weight and the ability to help carry someone else. That's all a hero is. If we were all heroes, we would just work ourselves up to the point where we had a strength for two people.
Man, that makes a whole lot of sense, man.
And he said the hero's greatest strength is love. And I think that's a really important thing when it comes to being a dad. I want to talk to you a little bit about dad. How old were you? Tell me a little bit about when you became a dad. What age were you? What was that like for you?
I will. And right before I say it, let me just read this to you. So this is the verse I was looking for earlier. It's 1 Chronicles 19:13. It says, "Be of good courage and let us behave ourselves valiantly for our people and for the cities of our God, and let the Lord do that which is good in his sight." That is what you say about being a hero. Having enough courage for two. being able to stand in the gap for somebody else, right? So along that lines, I became a dad when I was 27. I was not prepared to become a father whatsoever. It just happened. But again, that was my choice. I I had a choice in becoming a father, right? So when I was 27, so I was older than most of the people that I knew that had kids. I'm sorry, what was the other question? When did you become a dad, and what else?
Yeah, tell me what it was like. What was that transition like for you? What did it light inside of you whenever you were like, oh man, I've got this little person here? Did anything change for you, shift?
It did. So that situation in New York City with the guy in the gun, that was right before I became a dad. Right before she got pregnant. And again, that's why I had to change my mindset, because I was like, man, I got somebody else that I got to take care of that nobody can help. And so I was 27. I was terrified. And just for all the potential dads, there's probably some today getting ready to go out there and have a baby today, like the baby's going to be born today. Let me tell y'all something. Let me tell y'all something that they ain't going to tell you at the hospital. There's going to be a point, and you can attest to this, where they just gonna leave you in the room. They ain't gonna tell you nothing. You're gonna be in there with that woman kicking and screaming. She's gonna be having a fit. And you're gonna think she's dying, and nobody comes to help you. And you're like, what's going on? He's calling for the doctor, and they don't come. That's so wrong and messed up. I remember asking my mom, I was like, why didn't somebody tell me? It's like, oh, you didn't do it to everybody. We had a hospital room full of people, and then all of a sudden they're just gone for a minute. So
it's you.
I want to tell you, it's just you. So I want to tell you, dude, Dad, you're gonna be okay. It seems like everything's bad and it's going wrong. It's supposed to happen like that. They ain't gonna tell you that, but they should tell you that. So that's part of being dadly, right? But I remember being terrified in that emergency room, because I was like, man, somebody need to get in. I remember going out in the hallway of the hospital saying, man, somebody need to get in here, man. Just kind of like, calm down, sir. It's okay, But if they told me that they were going to leave out for a while and just let her kick and scream, it would have been all right. But it really sucked. So all the way up until that point, before my daughter was born, I was terrified about being a dad, because I was like, I don't know how to do this. I'm graced to have two dads, not like that, but I had two dads, in my biological father, and I had my stepfather. My stepfather's been in the picture for a long time. He's been around since I was 16. So I call him my dad as well. My biological father passed away. I have had the good grace to have two good dads. They both were really good dads. Now, the difference is my biological father was not so great of a husband, but he was a fantastic father. My stepfather was both great dad and a great husband. So I had a chance to see how to be a father properly. And my dad was all about a man should be a man and do manly things to take care of his family. So that was a good thing. But with that being said, there is this innate God-given peace that comes over you the moment that child is born, and you go, I know how to do it. I don't know what that is. It's just like, oh, I know how to be a dad. It's like it just comes over you. Now, it doesn't mean you've got it all figured out, but you know how to do it. And man, that was one of the most incredible feelings of my life, man, to create life and then to see it come to fruition and be like, man, this is something that I created. My daughter was born, her name was Vida, life, Spanish, life. We named her Life, because she just was, man, a child just incredible. She has every talent that I have, 10, 20 fold. She's much better at everything that I do. She's an artist as well. She's into film. She's incredible. And it's just amazing to see how, and I'm sure you're seeing this in your sons, how you're like, man, I used to do that when I was a kid. Like, it's just in you, Oh yeah. It just kind of just passed down along. It's just kind of in the good and the bad, right? And it just kind of passed down. But that was my experience on becoming a father. Now, something that you work at every day. But I would truly believe and say that from the moment the child is born, I guess the paternal instincts, because you're a dad, right? The paternal instincts take over, and you know what you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I totally kind of know that feeling in terms of, I don't necessarily know that I felt like I was like, I know how to do this exactly. When he was little, when he was a baby, I kind of did. I felt more confident as a baby, but when he started to have a little personality and stuff, that did kind of change things. But, there is kind of like, you're watching them and you're keeping, you're feeding them and protecting them and kind of being along for that nurturing ride, especially my second son, because my first son, I didn't really get to spend as much time with, unfortunately, as a little guy. His mother lived in a different state than me. And until he was 5 years old, I really didn't get a lot of time with him. But my second son, I got, he co-slept with me. I've been there from the beginning with him. But I remember this time, like whenever my little guy was, just kind of starting to kind of walk around and stuff like that. And he started to kind of model things that we were doing and everything like that. He started to become his own little individual. And I'm like, man, we're really we're raising this human being who, I hear him say things sometimes. I go, that I got to stop saying that because I'm thinking in my head, it doesn't sound good when I hear that little dude say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other day, what was it that happened? Something happened. This guy does. I remember I was trying to turn left. There's this big truck and big trucks aren't very fast. I'm talking about like a semi.
Right.
And I rolled my window down because it's a very short notice that we couldn't turn left, that there wasn't a turn left, there wasn't a go straight only lane and they had the left hand turn. So as I pull up, I'm right in front of the semi. I roll down my window. I say, hey man, do you mind if I come in? And the guy's like, go to the back of the lot. He's throwing in his hands, go to the back.
Yeah,
and
then
he inches forward to close the gap to show me he's not going to let me in. And I roll up the window and my son goes, idiot. I looked at her and I was like, hey. And I was like, hey, calm down. He's like, that guy's an idiot. I was like, oh no, that's not good.
He is, but you don't say it. He is.
I was like, yeah, he is, but you need to, I don't know that we should be saying that. And I knew the sound of his voice when he said that guy's an idiot. I was like, oh, gosh, that is my son. I got to correct that. I got to stop modeling that because that is not good. But it was so funny to hear his voice.
I love that honesty that he's right.
Oh, yeah.
I love that honesty at that age, man. It's so good. I know that when Vita was about around that age, 5, 7, something, one day she comes to me and she goes, Dad, I've been thinking about it and I'm going to catch the tooth fairy. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. You going to catch the tooth fairy? Yeah. She sneaks in and out and she's got this whole elaborate plan. It just really makes you laugh where their mind is at, and it's just so real and honest, I love that stuff, man.
My son, they have such a cute imagination. My son the other day, he said, and this isn't necessarily an imagination, but just the kids say the darndest things kind of thing. He says, yeah, Dad, there's a really cool kid in my class. I said, oh, really? I said, what's his name? He goes, his name's Miles. I said, oh, cool. And I said, what makes him so cool? He goes, he's missing a tooth. He doesn't have a tooth right there. And I was like, so that makes him cool. He's like, yeah, only cool kids don't have teeth. I was like, really? And he said, yeah, I wish I was cooler. And I said, you mean you wish you were missing a tooth? And he goes, yeah. I said, because these perfect teeth you have, that's no good, right? He's like, nah, it's way cooler to not have a tooth.
Is that what it is? I didn't know.
I was like, well, that's going to change when you get older.
A whole lot.
You cracked me up with that.
A whole lot.
So tell us a little bit about Vita and kind of, there was something you and I talked about, and I feel like it's worth getting into just because
sure,
the world is so dynamic. There's so many differences in the world. people are so unique and every situation is unique. And I think you have a situation that it's one of those situations where we hear about it, but you don't really get to meet the dad or talk to the family a lot who are experiencing it. Would you share with our listeners a little bit about?
I will.
Yeah, because I think the thing is, I think I want to open a window into this so people can see that there are so many perspectives. And I want to say that on this channel, we honor and respect every perspective.
Everybody. Absolutely.
Every single perspective. So if you have a perspective that's going to be different than Jazz, we welcome that too. Everybody it's your freedom and your God-given right to have your point of view. You know, God didn't give us your eyes, right?
Right.
He gave us our eyes. So I want to hear from your eyes and from your point of view, your life and your experience to the degree that you feel comfortable with sharing as well.
I will. I appreciate that. So John, if you edit, make sure you get this part of it, if nothing else, right? I mean, absolutely. Sit up a little more straight. I mean, absolutely no disrespect to anyone who's transgender, who I don't know all the acronyms, so I'm not even going to try. I don't mean any disrespect to anybody. I love everybody. I love all people, man. I've got friends who are different sexual orientations. That's fair to say. I don't know any of the political correct stuff. I'm an introvert. I spend a lot of time at home. I'm either painting or playing with guns. I don't watch TV. I don't do any of that stuff. So I don't know any of that stuff. So please forgive me if I say your stuff wrong, because I'm sorry. But the way I'm going to tell this story, I can't help but offend some people because all I can do is be honest. But it is never in any disrespect. It's all in love. And that's just the truth of it, right? So my daughter is 19 years old now. I've told some stories about her when she was little, but my daughter's 19 years old now. She considers herself to be trans, and she's been living as a male since she was, I think, 13. Her mother and I had a divorce. We were married for 10 years. We got a divorce. I just want to start by saying I've always been a great dad. I was not a great husband. I was a terrible husband. That's why I had so many tries at it. But I was a terrible husband. And because I was a terrible husband, I ended up getting a divorce from her mother. But PTA, homework, that was me. I love being a dad. I was always about being a dad, but I wasn't great at being a husband. And so, again, my choices ended up affecting my family in a negative way that caused me to lose my daughter. So when her mother said, "Hey, we're getting a divorce and I'm taking Vita with me," I was like, well, I really want to keep her. Nope, she's going with me. So I didn't want to fight with her. I didn't want to take her through that whole custody thing. So I said, okay. But what that ended up seeming like was like I didn't care for her the same as I did. She ended up living a good part of her life thinking that I just didn't want anything to do with her, when that's not true at all. I still have every Father's Day card she's ever given me and all that stuff. Pictures of her, all that dadly stuff, right? Like I've still got all that. But when she got about 13, they were in Philadelphia. She's originally from New York. She started living like that. And I didn't know for a couple years. She tried not to FaceTime very often. She used to come every summer, a couple times a year. I'd see her, and then she just decided she's not come anymore. And so she wore hoodies and stuff and kind of hide what she had going on. And so I didn't know for a long time. But when she finally approached the subject, I believe she was 15 or 16. She said, "Dad, I want to change my name." And I was like, "Okay, you want to change your name? I don't really have a problem with that." And she's like, "Well, I want to change my name because I'm not a girl anymore. I'm a boy." And my heart sank. I was just devastated because I love that girl. And the truth is, I was devastated because I thought maybe she had been sexually abused or something had happened to her, because that's not just something I've never woke up and said, "Hey, today I'm different." Right. So I couldn't, I felt bad because I wasn't there to protect her from whatever made her feel like she wanted to change what she was. But see, in my mind, She's perfect as she is. There's absolutely nothing wrong with her. And that whole just gotta tell like it is, God doesn't make mistakes. And so you may feel like whatever you feel like, but you are what you are. Male bone structure is different than female bone structure. All of the exterior, your interior is the same. You can't get a new skeleton. It doesn't work like that, right? So you are what you are. You're built the way you are. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's no good. But I let her express herself. I let her tell me everything she wanted to tell me. This is who I am, and this and that and the other. And I listened, and she waited for me to respond, and I responded with what I recommend every father who is going through this thing go respond. I said, hey, I love you. And what you're doing is no different than anything I've ever done in my life. I've done some terrible things in my life. So I will not fault you for that. I'm not going to come at you and say, oh, this is wrong and you're going to hell and this and that. No, I believe, because my faith tells me that exact thing that God does not make mistakes and that we are to be who he created us to be. But I didn't put that on her. I told her that I love her, and I will love her no matter who she identifies as or what she decides to do. But she can never be my son. She's my daughter. I love her as who she is. She wants to change her name. That's fine. She changed her name to Alex. I legally signed the paper so she could be Alex. I have no problem loving her as Alex, but you can't expect me to just take a new person in and just change that. I'll give you an example. And again, this is not to hurt anybody's feelings. This is just my understanding of it. I'm a conservative man. I'm a man of God, and I'm conservative. And I believe that things should be a certain way, right? It'd be fair for me to say, you know what, Alex, decided you're my dad. And I'm the daughter. No, you need to take care of me. That's how I feel. That's how I identify. Would that be fair for me to just change like that? Some would say yes, some would say no, right? But the important part is there would have to be a transitional period there, right? There'd have to be something where you say, wait a minute, let me understand this. You can't just say, here's this new person. I would never bring a stranger home, some strange man, right? If you change your gender, right? I would bring some man home and say, hey, you can just live in my house, right? Well, I have a wife. No, I'm not just bringing some strange people home, right? So I need the opportunity to get to know somebody before I bring them into my. Now, with that being said, I accept her for who she is and who she wants to be, but I cannot pretend like she is male when she's not. I believe wholeheartedly by the grace of God that she will come back to what the truth really is, and she will come back to being who she was created to be. But even if she doesn't, that's okay. I still love her, and I've tried to be a part of her life as much as I can. And I get the notion that she expected me to be with her for, to like fight with her, but I've never said anything bad to her at all. Like, that's just not how I roll. That doesn't get results. I've done nothing but show her love. So she's still in my life, just a distant way of doing things. And I just hope every day that it'll get closer, and I do my part to try to bring her closer. But it can only be what it's going to be.
Wow, man. It's kind of like overwhelming for me to even consider like what that would be like. I was sitting in there, listening to you, and I was thinking, man, what would it be like if my son came to me and says, Dad, I'd like to change my name. I want to be Patricia or whatever. And I'm like, there's just so many questions, like how, why, what caused this? Where did you feel like this happened? At what point did you feel that, you are Patricia? And also where's all that coming from? And it's such a confusing, it's so confusing for everyone. it was funny, and I mentioned this to you earlier, and it's so strange. I mean, it really is like bizarre how God works. But I was leaving my son's school, and this morning I was like thinking, I just can't imagine. It's so hard to wrap my head around how somebody could look in the mirror and look at their body. They don't even have to look in the mirror. Why do we need to look in the mirror? They just look at their body and they see this physical form, male or female, and they think there's something different. They feel.
And we hadn't even talked about that.
And it's never occurred. All of a sudden, it's just like, well, this is.
No, you and I never even talked about that.
I had no idea.
What a coincidence is that,
No, you said, hey, can I talk to you before this so that we can kind of, I just want to tell you a little bit about my situation. I know this might be sensitive to your viewers, and I appreciate your sensitivity to all this. And you called me, you said, hey, this might be a touchy subject. So I want to make sure before we get on, because it could press some hot buttons. This is my perspective, et cetera. And, but yeah, we'd never talked about it. And that was this morning. And I was literally, and I turned to Bethany and I said, I just can't imagine what that would be like. And she goes, where's that coming from? I said, I don't know. I'm just thinking about it. And literally that was this morning. I mean, it's just the weirdest serendipity.
Ain't it? Right.
But I was trying to imagine it. And it is so hard to get into their shoes and understand how they could, how they could get to a point where they felt so different. And, part of me I had this feeling and this concern, are these the times, they talk about in scripture and stuff, basically that there's, these times where, and I worry sometimes about all these signs, men think of their women think of their men, and the pedophilia that we've seen over the years that's shown up, and so it's such a high rate, and all the child sex slaves and stuff like that, and all this, and then the war and the manipulation, it all gets to this point where it's so overwhelming. It's so overwhelming, and I sometimes wonder, what's this? Is this a sign of something? And one of the things I think about is, and this isn't to say that a person who has gender dysphoria, I mean, it's hard to say they're not sick. And I don't mean sick that's sick and twisted. I mean it's not an illness. It's hard to see. It's hard to say it's not an illness because your physical makeup, and your identity, it's very weird that they're separating. And I think sometimes about just how society as a whole sometimes right now feels unhealthy. It feels sick. I see a lot of addiction everywhere I go. And we think of addicts. If I said, well, addiction's awful, people would say, yeah, I agree. But then you see so many people standing in line with their dopamine pump in their hand.
Right.
You see so many people sitting at a dinner table, nobody's talking to each other, all on their cell phones. You see so many people scrolling at lights when you're at the stoplight. You see, and I'm guilty of this stuff too. I'm not trying to say I'm I do my best really actually to practice, for example, keep my phone on airplane mode. When I go to parties or events, keep my phone separate from me. I try to keep myself, I distance my phone. When I shut down my computer at the end of the night, I try to make sure it's out for the night. That's it for the night. So I can turn myself onto my family. I got to turn this off and turn myself into a different mode. And one of the things that helps me do that is keeping the interfaces away from me, but I guess my point is and there's a quote I use a lot. It's from Krishnamurti, who said, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And I think so many people want us to just get on with it. Just let it go, just be okay with people being addicted to this technology. Just be okay with people being addicted to dopamine things where they actually life itself isn't satisfying anymore. Doing quality work doesn't feel good because I could just bliss out on Instagram or something like that. Or I don't need a romantic relationship because I have a virtual reality set and I can watch pornography. So many people I think are just well, just get over it, man. That's just the time we're in, and I can't get over it. For me, I'm when I see these things, that I don't want to be well adjusted. I don't want to be well adjusted to a sick society.
No, man.
I want to be a healthy aspect that can model health in a sick society.
Yeah.
I don't want to adjust myself to this. And so that's
you want to be dadly.
I want to be dadly. I want to be a role model. I don't want,
yeah, man. Yeah.
And so it asks a lot of us, because there is so much of a wave with all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every parent had the opportunity when they were younger. Say, well, all the kids are doing it. My son loves to say, yeah, you're so weird. Nobody cares about, and I'm like, look, let me be the squeaky wheel. Let me be the voice that says, no, that's not normal. Just because all your friends do it doesn't, and that's the dadliness coming out, or the parenting that comes out that says, hey, if everybody would have jumped out the bridge, would it be, you would jump out the bridge. When, my son, for example, like we have restrictions on different things, and he doesn't like them sometimes,
Right.
But at the same time, I'm like, there's a reason that you have to have the guardrails up, because I will let you hit the guardrails, but I'm not going to let you crash your own vehicle. I'm not going to, and I'm talking about the body as a vehicle.
Absolutely.
So I want to let you jump in. I've said a lot, but that's kind of, there's something there for me about, I just worry about our society, man.
You are so right. And, man, it's just, I love talking to you, man, because we vibe a lot on the same stuff, right? So let's run it back to being dadly, right? Part of being, if you are married, I'm talking to married men. If you are married, part of being dadly is being husbandly. And if you don't protect that and fix that and keep that together and be faithful, you're going to mess everything else up. My pastor says, when you are delivered from something, or when you don't do it anymore, you don't mind talking about it. And so I don't mind talking about the things I used to do, because that's not who I was. Like, I talk about drugs all the time, and we make jokes like, oh yeah, make jokes about, smoking crack, or like we made a joke. I said, I'm not snorting coke because I'm blowing my nose and stuff.
Right.
You could test me for whatever you want. There is not a drop of anything in my system, so it doesn't bother me. So part of that being dadly and going back to the sick society, I wasn't a good husband to my wife, and so I was bad. I used to, infidelities. This is coming from someone who was on drugs. I used to sleep with prostitutes. I mean, I've been the worst of the worst, but because I did that, it separated my ability to be a dad, because when she had enough, daughter's way over here now. How can you be dadly from a distance? You can only be a little bit, right? And so going back to the whole gender thing and phones and all this kind of stuff, you put restrictions on your kids because you don't want the bad things to happen to them, right? When bad things happen to you, they tend to go through the generations, right? So taking it back a little bit further, whenever I was about, how old now? Man, maybe when I was about 7, 8 years old, I got molested by a female in my family. And she did some things to me. And so immediately my innocence was lost. Sex was a thing for me early on. So I carried that into my marriage. There was always this sickness in society, and she did it to me. Somebody did it to her, right? So I carried that on, and it permeated through my relationships, and it just made it so women were never just this, they weren't honored, right? They were never honored. And so they were just a thing to do because it happened to me, right? So it's like, yeah. And although I had a good dad who was like, look, son, you never, ever take anything from a woman who doesn't give it to you. So I was never that kind of guy, but I was very scheming, right? I would take as much as I was allowed to have. And so even though I was married, I got married because I was becoming a dad. She said, hey, I'm pregnant. We need you to get married. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Let's do that. no, that was a bad idea. And so I ended up having a lot of infidelity in it. Well, that's kind of why we separated and had problems, right? So she calls me one day, my ex-wife calls me one day and she says, you need to talk to your daughter because she got caught watching pornography when she was about 13. So where did it do? It opened up that gate. That's where all that trans stuff came from. She never thought anything like that, never had any problems like that until she was exposed to some adult stuff. Now, I don't know if anything more than that happened, but I do remember that happening. So it goes back to why we say, hey, son, don't watch that. Don't do this. Don't do that. It keeps you from getting hurt. You know, my biological father, he didn't have a problem. He didn't think there was anything wrong with pornography. That was just that was in the way they grew up back in that day was like, well, that's how you stay faithful, by having things like that.
That's great.
But that's not really being faithful, right? But that's in his mind. That's how you be faithful, right? Well, I developed a thirst for pornography. I developed a addiction to pornography. So that would being, taught some things at an early age and then watching stuff like that, that makes your sexual experience way heightened and you become something you shouldn't. So when that happened to her, I was like, oh, I was so mad at myself because I wasn't around to keep her from that. Had I been around, eventually, yeah, she'll see it. But had I been around to do my job properly as a dad, then I could have stopped it. I could have said, hey, this is why you don't want to mess with this. This is why you don't want to mess with that. I told you earlier before we got on, I said, had you told me 20 years ago, 19 years ago that I would have to deal with a trans issue, I was like, oh, that's crazy. That doesn't even make any sense. I didn't even know anybody like that. My biggest worry at the time was keeping boys from doing things to her. So that's the way I geared up. So I was like, boom, 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 right? Okay, look, when I found out I was having a daughter, I said, okay, you are going to know how to fight. You are never going to get taken advantage of. And I'm going to make sure you know all the tricks of the trade that I learned to scheme on women. I was going to teach her the opposite, so she couldn't get taken advantage of. Right. Yeah, kind of counter them, But I didn't. That was not the fight that I got to have at all. So I prepared for the wrong fight. So that's all the way around the mountain to tell you this, married dads. Please honor that marriage. Please take care of that marriage and make it incredible, make it right. And so it doesn't seem like it at the time, because in my mind I was like, oh, that's separate, right? Like, as long as I'm a good dad, I'm okay. And that's what I did. I was a great dad, but it's not enough because you've put somebody else into your situation. And I'll just tell your viewers one more thing. I laugh about this all the time. I've been married 3 times to 2 women. My first wife and my third wife are the exact same woman. So like Marty McFly, you can't out-husband me. I'm the best husband there is because I went back in time and married the same woman again. And so now I know all the answers. I know all the cheat codes. I'm a great husband, right?
I got the second chance.
Yeah, I had a second chance, right? Now, Rose and I don't have any children together, but I've known her since I was 18, actually. And so we were married when I was in the military. We couldn't make it work because that's a whole other podcast, right? But we got divorced. I married my second wife, and that's who I had a daughter with. But I carried all those bad ideas into that second marriage. And so I wasn't able to be a good husband, which kept me from being dadly. And I love that phrase, man. I'm gonna use it all the time. And I think that's such a good phrase, being dadly. It kept me from doing that. And so now on this side of it, I don't have any kids at home, but I'm able to talk to young men every day and give them the guidance that they need to keep them from messing up like I did. Because I just imagine what my family structure would have been like had I been a better husband. Being husbandly is a big part of being dadly.
Well, I love that, man. And actually, I'm not going to one up you, but I'm going to add to that.
Do it. Go for it, man. Do it, man.
Here's what I've come to understand that I think is super, super important. And it's everything you said and this.
Mm-hmm.
Honoring the mother is the work, whether you're with her or not.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Because here's the deal. when you honor your child's mother, you're honoring a part of them.
Mm-hmm.
When you dishonor the mother, you dishonor a part of your child. Our children know their makeup, even if it's subconscious. They know their makeup. So whenever you tear each other apart, you tear apart the child from the inside out.
Yeah.
Whenever you honor one another, you honor the child from the inside out.
Yes, sir.
And so even if you messed up in marriage, honor the mother.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you guys have animosity, honor the mother. The reason is because our children take on beliefs. I remember my parents, unfortunately, did what I consider to be a cardinal sin that I've had to work on myself, which is they basically got to a point where they were so angry at each other, they wanted their children to side with them. My dad wanted me to side with him. Man, if you knew your mother, if you knew what she did to me, you would never feel that way. My mother, if you knew your father wasn't, a train wreck. If you'd have known what he did to me, you would understand why I feel the way I feel.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And they say this, there's a line, they say, praise in public, criticize
in private.
And
absolutely.
And if we did this as dads with the mother, not that you should criticize the mother, that's probably not a good idea. But the point is that what if in front of the child, you lifted the mother up? And if you have trouble in private, you let her know. And then I'll give you a model for dads that are listening for how to share with the mother something you're challenged by, something I've had to learn over the years. And I can't say I'm perfect at it, but I try to do a retake if I don't get it right. So praise in public. So you in front of the child, praise the mother, lift her up because you're lifting a part of him up or her up. Okay. Mm-hmm. When you go to tell her something that's not working for you, or something that's kind of something you'd like for her to do differently. Number one, use I statements. Use statements. You do this. You always that, especially if you say always or never. You always do this. You never do that. I'm going to tell you that's a pitfall right there.
Mm-hmm.
The way to avoid it is don't say you, say I.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. It's real good.
The next thing is need or value. So I value relaxation after a long day's work. And when I come home and the house is a wreck, and I got to think about food, and I got to clean the dishes, and I got to prep everything before I even get started. I got to clean my own kitchen before I can even make it dirty. It stresses me out.
Mm-hmm.
Can you help me with that?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hell of a lot different than coming home and say, I worked all day and you never do the dishes. And if you would have had the dishes done, it'd be so much easier for me to get the things right. You never do it right.
Yeah, man.
And I'll tell you something. The contrast of that too is if I come home and I say in the kitchen, you never do the dishes. This is how you do it, blah, blah. And all the kids are sitting there, even if I don't care what they're doing, if they hear that on their mother, now they start to look at their mother.
Man, that's some good stuff, man.
Maybe there's something inside of them that's not right.
Yeah, man, that's some good stuff, man. Let me piggyback on that before I lose what I was thinking, because yes, that's one thing we never did. So even though we had a really bad marriage and we did it for 10 years, we didn't do that in front of her. We didn't. I never talked bad about her. I actually drove them to the airport when they left. I always treated her with respect in front of her mother and all that, and just made sure that it was never like that. And even as she got older, and I kept telling her, I said, when you turn 18, you can ask anything you want, and I will tell you the truth. Anything you want, but not until you hit 18. Anything you ask me, I promise you, I'll tell you the truth. But there'd be times she'd be like, well, how come this was like this? And even though, I could say it was her mother's fault, I would never go, oh, well, that's because your mom did this, she did that. The only thing I ever told her, I said, I never wanted you to leave. I never wanted you to leave. I always wanted you to stay with me. always completely. And I would never say anything bad about her mother, no matter how bad I was being portrayed on the other side. And I've heard lots of things that were said about me. Not that they came directly from her mother, but just family members and things like that. Like there was a lot of negative on my side to make it sound as if I didn't care about her.
Right.
There is a difference between, you know, if your relationship's not working, it's not working. That doesn't mean you don't love them. But it all goes back to what you said about honoring the mother in front of them, you know. And even when she did turn 18 and ask me some questions, I didn't dishonor her mother. And I made it a point never to do that. And to this day, I've never done that. I make sure to never talk bad about her mother. Yeah.
Well, if that was your starting point, no wonder you're the best husband. Because
That's right, man. You can't beat me. I challenge any husband in America right now. We can go head to head on husband. You cannot beat me. I promise.
See, I didn't have such a good starting point. I can tell you that.
I messed it up. We were married 7 years the first time, and I messed it up for 7 years. So I'm telling you, I'm Marty McFly, man. I went back in time and like I've got it. If I could, real quick, if I could say something about that real quick, man, let me take my ass off real quick, man. Let me tell you something, man. Man, I love my woman, man. I know this is about being dad, but let me tell you something, man. I love that woman, man. First off, she fine. If I get you a picture, man, put a picture of my woman up there, man. Man, that girl is fine. But she's fine because she respects that I have a child with somebody else. She never talked bad about her mother. She helped me to be dad. She always is like, hey, do we need to send this to Vita? Hey, do we need to do this? You know, she changed to Alex. Hey, do we need to send this to Alex? We need to do this for Alex. But it just wasn't received like that, you know. Man, let me tell you something about that woman. We are the best form of marriage that we possibly could be. We never fight. And it's not because like we're like, oh, we just don't have problems. We have disagreements, but we never fight. We don't raise our voice. And this is the first version of us. Let me tell you something. Knock down, drag out. I'm talking about we were rough. She's from Brooklyn. We were rough, man. Like curse each other out, just be terrible to each other, just say anything, do anything. But this time around, because God is in our marriage, we never disrespect.
So when you say your first and third wife are the same person, you don't mean that metaphorically.
No, I mean exactly the same woman. I've married her twice.
Okay, I thought you meant metaphorically. You got the second.
No. My wife's name is Rose Davis. I married Rose when I was 18. Oh, I'm gonna have to tell the story, man. I was just a boy. I was just a boy, young and impressionable. Oh, I was 18 when I met my wife. She was 24, I think. And I'm from Oklahoma. So Oklahoma 18 and New York City 24, man, there's a big difference. I had a good summer, y'all.
Oklahoma, real quick.
I was gonna say I had a good summer, y'all.
I guess so. She taught you a thing or two.
Oh yeah. Oh, she taught me some stuff. But I'm from Mangum, Oklahoma originally, man. Little country town, man. I think we had 1,300 people in our town growing up. It's really small. But I met her online before that was a thing. We met online before you could send pictures. We actually had to mail each other pictures and talk on AOL Instant Messenger. Yeah. And dial up. Yeah. And I just graduated high school. I was getting ready to graduate. And she's like, hey, man, I live in New York. I live by myself. I was like, woo. My mom was like, what you gonna do with that grown woman? And I went to New York City, man, and that's how I learned art and all that kind of stuff like that. But like I said, that's a whole nother podcast. But the important part, yes, 1 and 3 are literally the same woman. So we were married when I was in the Air Force. Man, I made $856 a month. You can't be married on $856 a month. So we had a really hard time. We did it. And then finally we were like, that's enough. I was like, I hate you and I'm done, right? And I mean, these are two people who said, I literally hate you, cannot stand you. I'm talking about scratch eyes out, just couldn't stand each other. Got divorced. I remarried a few years later to my daughter's mother because I've always liked being married. I'm just weird like that. I've always liked being married. I just wasn't good at it. But we got married. We were married for about 10 years. And then again, it didn't work because I didn't, man, I'm telling you something. When you have an absence of God in your life, you cannot perform as a husband. Marriage was ordained by God. It was made by, you can't do it outside of him. It doesn't work like that. You can try. There's so many couples like, oh, well, I'm not taking your name, and you're not married. It's not the same. You've got to be one. I'm not saying you have to take their name, but you have to merge. We got divorced. I moved to California, opened up an art studio. I was like, look, I'm doing my thing. I'm not getting married no more, and I'm gonna do what I'm doing. And lo and behold, Rose called me one day, and I always did love her, but we just couldn't figure it out. And she called me, and we started talking, man. She's like, I'll move out to California. I'm like, come on, girl, come on out here to California. So she came out to California, and I got to tell you this story. She came out to California. This is when I knew we were going to get remarried, okay? I'm talking about, this is somebody who we went the full gamut. I was in my studio in Alameda, and it doesn't rain that often in California. And so I had cut an exhaust because I shoot a lot of clear coat, and I needed to evacuate the fumes, and everything was good. And then we had a real heavy rain, and I said, man, I'm stressed out about the studio. I really need to get down there and make sure everything's okay. And she goes, okay, cool. So we were just engaged. We were dating and engaged. We weren't married. And we went to the studio, and it's sloshing rain. And I go to put my key in the door, and all I can hear is a waterfall. And I'm like, oh no. I opened the door. I had a studio mate downstairs, and my studio was upstairs. I opened the door, and there was a literal waterfall pouring through the floor down into the space below me. And I was just like, oh. I ran upstairs. I opened my door. There was water, probably 6 up there of water where it collected like a bowl. And things were floating in my studio. I'm talking about garbage cans, stuff was floating. And I just fell on my knees, and I began to cry. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my business. I'm going to get kicked out of here. This is bad. Most modern women be like, oh, what you need, messed up, young, like, just, you're in trouble, right? My wife is Puerto Rican and Dominican, right? Spicy, right? I fell on my knees, I began to cry, and I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And all I felt was this bump. And I looked over, and man, this woman is standing next to me with 2 buckets in her hand, man. And her pants legs rolled up. She had 2 buckets in her hand, and her pants legs rolled up. And she said, come on, let's fix this. Come on, man. Come on, I'm sorry, y'all. Come on, man. She's like, let's fix this. Let's fix. I was like, yeah. I was like, that's my woman. That's my woman. I will love you. I will honor you. I will cherish you. We bailed water out of the studio until the sun came up. Bailed water so bucket by bucket. And I have been with that woman ever since. I love her to death. We've been married this time around we laugh because we both forget when our anniversary is and how long we've been married. So we just don't care. It doesn't matter. But, I think we've been for I don't know, somebody do the math, maybe about 8 years this time or something like that. But I've known her since I was 18, man. And man, let me tell you about a good marriage, man. We don't fight. We don't have any chaos. We support each other fully. She was the one that told me I was going to be a professional artist before I ever did anything for Disney or Warner Brothers or HBO. Before I did any of that stuff, she was the one that told me that's what I was going to do. Even we hated each other when she told me that. So I had to talk about my wife for a minute because I love that woman, and I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't be, man, she just encourages me so much. And through every part of my business, she trusts me. And because I got all the wild oats or whatever you want to call them out of me, I'm gone for days at a time sometime because I'm working. I don't have any problems. We don't have any issues. So I just want to send a shout out to my fantastic wife, Rose Davis. I love that woman to death, man. And yeah, that is a huge part of who I am. And she has no problem letting me lead our family. She has no problem saying, yes, you are the head of our household. Be what God created you to be and let me follow your lead. You know, she has no problem with that. And we don't look at it like, oh, you're being disrespectful. Your woman's second. No, I am made to honor and cherish this woman and take care of her. I can't lead from the back, you know? And so we don't have any issues in our marriage with, well, you know, it's a partnership. And yeah, it's a partnership, but there's still roles to be had. And we enjoy our roles and we do them. And that's why I don't have to do any laundry. And I'm pretty
That is so beautiful, man. That is so beautiful. And you know, I hope some of the listeners will take a look on YouTube, because I know something that they're going to miss was that emotional part. But I can tell you from watching you feel, because I know the feeling of the blessing that you felt of her in your life in that moment where it started to hit you, and you remember back where there she is with those 2 buckets ready to go.
Yeah.
You had that kind of support, that kind of person. When you're down on your knees, they said, hey, we got this. We got this. That is just so beautiful, man. Like I felt my heart open just a little bit more watching you. And I hope people will go back and see that. That was really special.
Yeah, had a moment of weakness there for a minute, man. But I can't help it. When you really love somebody, man, like you go there and you can't help it.
Oh, dude,
you just can't help it, man.
I do not think it was a moment of weakness. I just want to say I'm gonna reframe on that. It was a moment of cherishing. Like there's a different way to cry, right? Maybe maybe that
it's a good cry,
yeah.
And I'm comfortable with that. I'm definitely comfortable with that. I'll cry and I'll die for that woman, right? With no problem at all. So moment of weakness in like opportunity. I you know, it wasn't a time for it. You know what I mean? But I don't have any problem with people seeing that, because I do love that woman that much, man. Never had anything like that. Man.
I hope she'll take a look too. I'm sure she will.
Oh yeah. Oh, she was already asking me about it before I did it. She fully supports everything I do, man. Like there's nothing that I do that she's like, oh, why are you doing that? That's stupid. And so if any negative comes out, it's not negative. It's more like, I don't think that's a good idea, or that's not a good look for the company, or man, I'm telling you, man, having a good woman is crucial. It's crucial to be in dadly, because you can't do it unless you're a single dad and there's no woman in the picture. That's one thing. But if there's a woman in your life and you can't get it on the same page with her, you can't make the rest of it work. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. You know, I got a question for you. I think we'll wrap it up, but I do want to ask you, and I'm not doing this of trying to create like a therapy session on this, because that's not what I want.
Yeah,
I'll kind of want to ask it, because it's kind of like I feel like there's something a little open-ended, and I want to kind of close that loop. So you say you and Alex, y'all have a relationship, but it's at a distance. And I'm curious, you know, what do you see as like the future for your guys' relationship, and how do you traverse that? Seeing as how your views are different, where are you at with that?
That is a good question. That is a question I ask myself often, but it's the best way I can answer that. I don't know why God works the way he does. I don't know why he made things the way he made them, but I honor them by just accepting them for the way they are. I've invited her to my house so many times, she just won't come. For me, I don't care if you live 50, 60, 100 years as a man, but aren't a biological male, you'll never understand what it is. And then the reverse of that is, how dare you go put on a dress and some makeup and change and get all of that and call yourself a woman. Woman art. Man, there is something about a woman that you cannot recreate. There is this femininity, man, that is so beautiful. And it's because it's something that God put in you. So how dare you go and put this thing on and just expect it to change? So to answer that question, I don't know what it's going to look like. for us in the future. I don't know why God makes things the way he makes them, but I'm going to follow the path and believe that it's going to bridge. And hopefully we'll be on this podcast together one day and we'll be talking about it. And then I can answer that question in person. But all I know for now is I'll keep loving her. I'll keep trying to reach out and treat her like family, and hope that things will get better, right? It's not wrong for me to have my own hopes, even though it may make some people mad. My hope is that she will come back. That's my hope. My hope is that she will come back. And you know what? If she does, we can pick up right where we left off. And I'm financially, spiritually, every part of me is open to helping her every bit that I can, as Alex or as Vita or as female Alex, whatever you want to call it. I'm open to help her any way I can, but I will never be able to pretend.
Man, that's what a whirlwind too of emotion, of psychological. The psychological piece is so interesting. Like I've never had to confront this, to be honest, other than from an outsider's perspective. I actually lived with a transgender when I was in high school. I stayed with a family, and there was a male there. His name was Clint, but he went by Jennifer. He had been through the operations. He had Adam's apple removed, breast augmentation, hormone therapy, voice therapy, hairline work. I even remember thinking, golly, the amount of surgery and work. The pain of those kinds of surgeries is not to be like, it's a serious thing.
It's serious,
and you just got to know that, like, when a person goes to that length, they kind of work. I mean, I imagine, like, for example, Vita had their breast removed. Is that the case? She did it with hormones, and
she's in the hormone stuff right now. I don't think she's had any physical surgery.
But they go to great lengths. The point is they go to great lengths. And so, I've always had this mindset. My mom taught me this when I was younger, accept people because you don't live their life. It's not your life to live. She taught me that early on. She says, they say live and let live, and judge not yet, lest you be judged. It's not for you, because the truth is, like you said early on, you said it right in the beginning, hey, this is no worse than anything I've done.
Nope.
Nope. Hey, if you think I'm going to judge you, I can't judge you, because the reflection on myself is like, let me be judged. And you're going to see, I have. You
heard my history.
Yeah, I have all the same. I have sins that are just as bad or worse, and so
right.
So there's this like total acceptance, but it's interesting too is that it goes both ways, right? I mean, your daughter has to accept you. She wants to be accepted,
right?
But
it's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street. She has to accept that you are a God-loving and fearing man who says, I'm not willing to participate in the lie. So as long as you can keep me out of participating in the lie, we can have a relationship. And at the same time, you are having to say, look, this is what I want for you, but it's not my life. It's your life. And I'm going to have to love you one way or the other. This is how the choice, I'm going to love you regardless of your choice. And there's got to be
a lot of people think that you're like, when you're like not with trans or, these different things, you say, oh, you're a homophobe. That's not true at all. I've got clients that are transgender. I've painted some pageant dresses for some transgender people. And I've done all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I've never disrespected them or treated them wrong. I've never been like that. So it's not from a homophobe perspective or anything like that. It's just, that's not what I enjoy. That's not the life that I'm living. But you want to do that, that's fine. We can still kick it. I can't tell you how many I've done. They had this thing called Gayborhood in Austin. like neighborhood, neighborhood. And so when I was working at a indoor range, they had wanted to come and talk about was it safe for them to come and was it okay? We're like, man, we'll teach all y'all. We don't care. That does not matter to me at all. You're actually in more danger. You really need some training, right? So I don't mind that at all, but I just can't participate in it. And so same thing, if I meet someone who is obviously of a different gender than they identify as, I just call them by their name. What's your name? I'll call you by your name. Is that fair? That's your name, right? And that's good enough for me, but I don't go into it. Now, if they say, what do you think about this? Or then I'll talk about it. But I never come down, you're going to hell. That's not my place. No matter what I believe, those are two different things. Accept them for who they are.
And I think that it is kind of one of those things where there's the transgender people require us to embody quite a bit of acceptance, a lot of acceptance. But like we said, it's a two-way street. All people that especially require an extraordinary amount of acceptance with people must also embody that acceptance.
Right.
To all the people out there who want to hate a conservative, want to hate a person with different beliefs from them because they don't completely align with their perspectives, embody what you preach.
Accept people.
Just like, hey, people are going to have a different opinion than you. That's the world, man.
Right.
Get on with it. And I'm not saying like, if you want people want people to be sensitive to their emotions and to their perspective. My friend, it's a two-way street. Extend the olive branch. Allow the conservative person who has Christian values to have their perspective without you treading on them.
You know what I will tell you, man, so Christianity has gotten a bad rap because a lot of people
and so has conservatism, by the way.
It has, exactly, right? And a black conservative. Oh, black conservative.
Oh, no.
Wait a minute. Oh,
there's no way.
And I drive a big 4x4 truck.
Man, there's just no way. You must have been adopted.
So that really messes them up. That really messes them up because I hop out in the suit. I hop out of my big 4x4 truck in the suit, and that really messes them up. They don't know what.
And he's an artist, and you're just breaking them all
the barriers, right?
That's because we got to stop labeling people. That's the thing. All of those are labels. Yeah. Oh, if you're a 4x truck, well, then I got an idea of association. Every single one of those, we got to break all those, man, because that's the problem.
We got to break them, man.
Look at how dynamic you are, bro. Look at how dynamic of an individual you are. Right. But I'm interrupting. But go on.
No, you're good, man.
Christianity has gotten a bad rap.
It's gotten a bad rap because. So, the word actually tells you that religion is not a good thing. Religion can be vain. It's a true follower of Christ. The religion is like the statutes and the relentless of it, right? That's not Christianity. That's not what Jesus was about, right? And so people, a lot of times when you say you're Christian, it's like, because they've gotten church hurt or they've had Christians come down on you, sir, right? Yes, that's true, but that's not the way it's supposed to go down. So they automatically become defensive. And so I'm always open to dialogues. I told, man, put my contact up there. I'm happy to talk to anybody, anytime, any day of the week about this stuff because I am not what you think. And it is not what you think. I'm also write poetry, right? And I won't give you a whole piece, but there's this line that I have in a poem that says, the world got you thinking that Christians is weak because they only pay attention when we're represented by freaks, people that don the name only to bring shame to what true disciples believe. So I volunteer to stand in front of firing squads with the name on my sleeve, Christian. And so people automatically have that negative connotation before they even know what you're all about.
It's like weapon instead of fire.
Weapon. That's exactly right.
If I say Christian,
exactly
you think
right, man.
weaponizing spiritual context.
Yes.
It
yes,
is
beat me over the head with the kind of deal. Yeah, man. And that's not the way it is. That's not the way I grew up, man.
The irony is that Jesus Christ wasn't a Christian. Christianity didn't. Isn't that right? I mean, as far as I understand,
it came for him. So the first Christians were at Antioch. The first people to be called Christians were at Antioch. And the Christian is a follower of Christ. And it's a follower of Christ that's all of his stuff, not what you like and what you don't like, all of his stuff. Those are the true Christians. It says those that worship him in word and in truth, the full gamut. Jesus never said worship me, but you worship the Father through him, right? And that's a whole nother aspect. But yeah, I worship Jesus. I love the Lord. I love him for who he is. I believe that there's only one way to God. There's only one way to heaven. I believe all that. But I'm not coming down on you like that, because you'll never understand what I understand if I start there. I wasn't always this way. I wasn't always a conservative. I wasn't always a Christian. I had to learn from myself. And then once I figured it out, and once I said, yes, this aligns with who I am and what I believe, then I became with it. If you think about the term liberal and conservative, right? Okay. I'm a conservative because God is conservative. What do you mean by that? Liberal, freedom, liberty, right? The freedom to do whatever you want. Yeah, I have the freedom to do whatever I want, but I conserve. When my wife goes in the street, I like her to cover that stuff up. I like her to conserve it. That's mine. That's not for everybody else, right? I'm conservative. Whenever I get in my truck and I go places, I don't just leave all the doors open and leave the truck running while I'm in the store and come back. I conserve. You get what I'm saying? So it's not what people are thinking. Like, that means you hate all the other sexual orientations and you don't want this and you don't want that. That's not what it means. That means I'm conserving for me. And that's what conservative is to me. I'm conserving this country. I'm a patriot. I didn't become a patriot until I was in the late 30s. Even in the military, I wasn't a patriot, because nobody teaches you what that really means. They just say, serve your country, be a patriot. Okay, but why? Nobody tells you the why. And once you start to understand the freedoms that we have and how wonderful this country really is, and if you went somewhere else, you're like, man, I can't wait to get back to America, right? Those are the kind of things that made me a patriot, I don't hate anybody, man. I don't hate for a very long time. That's not who I am. I found what the truth was, and I follow after that, and that's all it is to it, man.
There's a fantastic TED Talk on who has more moral value, conservatives or progressives. And it's by Jonathan Haidt, Haidt, I believe it is, Jonathan Haidt. And what's great about it is that he shows you that the morals of each, and the truth, like the thing about it is, like, we keep putting people in buckets, and I try to avoid this. I try to avoid the labels. Sometimes it's easy for conversation to sum up something, right? But I try to avoid those because people are so dynamic. And I don't think it's as helpful as it could be. But one of the things he does, he says, who's more morally correct, the progressive or the conservative? And then he puts up a list of morals, and he shows the moral perspective of each one. And as you see them, you go, both are necessary.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Both are absolutely necessary. On the conservative side, they value tradition. On the conservative side, they say, hey, things should change, but not so fast we wreck the car, basically. Not so fast we wreck our government. Not so fast that we destroy the value of what's here. It's kind of like the idea of don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
Conservatives
You
are
gotta
just
have
saying, hey,
rules.
there's some good here. There
Mhm.
is some good. In fact, we've seen the good of what this country does have as being a role model for the world. There's a reason that people look to America and say, and I know that the modern mainstream media and plenty of videos and movies have destroyed what good American looks like, good America. They've showed the McDonald's fast food trashy America, and they've said they put the stamp on it like that's America. That's not America. That's them perverting the image of America. That's them creating an image for the rest of the world to laugh at America. But the truth is that the rest of the world also appreciates and respects America, and that story isn't told enough. And so on the side that's conservative, it's like, well, they value tradition, they value order.
Yes.
and we'll stop there. There's more, but let's just stop there. They value tradition and order. And the progressive says, hey, things need to change. This isn't as good as it could be. We need to rework this. There are many people that are suffering because of the value and order that we currently have. We got to change this. Now, that is not wrong.
Yeah, you're right.
It's not wrong. Things do need to change. In fact, progress is good. But to Jonathan's point in the TED Talk, which I thought was so good, is that if you change things too fast, you create chaos. And when you create that chaos, you can lose order. And when these are in the loss of the order, they can create disorder to the point that you can throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Absolutely.
You can lose the backbone of what's there. You can destroy it. And so many people say, well, that's what we need to create something totally new. But you're standing up as a progressive, for example, standing up and saying, hey, these things need to be, we got to counter the system because these things are leaving people behind, or these things are not, they're not as good as they could be for the environment or for whatever it is that they may be standing up for. But the problem is they've lost all respect for the order that helps people. And I'm talking the majority of people. So yes,
right.
We need to correct some things, but not to the degree that we destroy it for everybody.
Think about it, man. Like, you got to have an order to everything. You have to be able to drink water and breathe at the same time. There's an order to that. If that order is not there, you're going to die. You've got to have order. There's got to be some system. And I think that people don't like rules nowadays. No, I just want to do what I want. I want it fast. I want it now. And that's just kind of how it is, I used to think the exact same way. Let me tell you, I grew up, my parents was always on me about doing the right thing, but that wasn't how I grew up. I broke the law. I did all kind of bad stuff. And the first thing I would say is, oh man, the white people, man, they're trying to, oh, that's racist. Oh man, and then I remember an interaction I had with the police. I was walking on base. I had a do-rag tied up on my head like Tupac. Folk like a mile. I'm sagging my pants. I'm walking down the block, and the MPs pull up. I'm on base now. The MPs pull up, and they kind of look at me, and then they cut in front of me, and I look at them. I walk around and say, hey, man, where you going? Oh, man, why y'all messing with me, man? I ain't done that, man. Well, first off, you don't look like you should be here. You're disrespecting the entire street by having your drawers all out, right? But in my mind, they're taking my freedom. They're taking my liberty. No, you're abusing me because I'm black. And they took me and put me in the car, and they took my rag off my head and threw it on the ground. But you know what? I was disrespecting their order. I was disrespecting what they had going on. I tell you, my dad's a chief. I was disrespecting my father. My father's an officer, right? I'm disrespecting my father by walking around like that. In my mind, all I can think of is me. How it affects me, how it's unfair to me. And I lived that way for many, many, many years. And then halfway through Obama's second term, I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense to me. And I started going through it. Let me tell you, when I quit breaking the law, I quit getting pulled over. I have never been beat by the police. I carry a gun all the time, openly. I've never been disrespected. I've never been treated. I know how to talk to them. They know how to talk to me. I don't play the race card because my parents don't let me play the race card. My parents are pretty well taken care of, right? They don't have any issues. It's all in how you carry yourself. And it's all about that law and order. Now, granted, my parents do not believe the same political system I believe in. We're different. My parents are progressive. They're totally different, right? But we have the same values. You know what I'm saying? So we don't argue when I go home. We're not fighting about this and that and the other. We vote totally different and all that, right? But the heart is there. Like you said, you need both. And the core of it is the same. We believe the same thing at the core. And that's all it's all about, man. Quit fighting everybody. There's no reason for it. None.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so funny. I actually had a little bit of a, when I was younger, I was a rebel. I decided to rebel against the system. I said, this system sucks. I'm totally against it. And I'm not saying there aren't still things that are totally need to be revolutionized. That's for sure. But I did have this like kind of chip on my shoulder. And I wore that chip on my shoulder in my clothing and my attitude and the way I carried myself. And simultaneously, I had drugs on me. I used to drive a lowrider with 22-inch wheels that had four, in the back. I used to have it on airbags. Yeah. I could raise it and lower it. I had a billet steering wheel. Yeah. I wore a bandana with long hair. I had, my ears pierced.
The same, man. Yeah, we was the same, man.
And I like, for lack of a better word, I was a thug. I can tell you, like, I promise you, if somebody drove next to me on the highway, they're like, that is a thug. Like, they thought for sure I was gang banging or something. Right. Now, I was kind of being just a little bit rebellious. I felt I was a little bit rebelling against my dad. Through some of my experience growing up, I was kind of rebelling. Right. But, now being sober, I have a much cleaner look. I don't wear the earrings anymore. I don't wear any of that stuff anymore. I have a much cleaner look and I'm sober. And I can tell you there is a feeling where I'm driving around. I'm like, y'all can't get me for anything.
Nothing. Ain't it great? Ain't it great?
Nothing. Man, you cannot get great. I'm like, nothing. I'm squeaky clean. Good luck. Like and there's a feeling I feel really good about it. And now that's not to say I don't disagree with certain laws. Like, for example, marijuana laws. I highly disagree with legalizing marijuana. When people can get wasted out on 6th Street to the point, because I used to work on 6th Street, to the point where they're throwing up, they could die that night. Right. You can't smoke yourself to death.
And weed is illegal.
You can drink yourself to death. I have problems with that. Morally,
it's the same thing as the firearm, like it's been demonized. Now, granted, I don't smoke. I'm not for it at all. I used to have an incredible weed habit. There was thousands of dollars a month. I've been there. It was bad. It was we used to have the weed cards in California.
Yep.
So we go to store. We go to store and buy our stuff. So it was like,
it's expensive.
But
absolutely.
But it's got that connotation to it, like, oh well, this has got to be bad because I don't watch this. This relates to what you're saying, but it goes back to like black crime and all kind of stuff like that, right? Okay, I'm not denying that there's racism in the world. There is. But it's not like every time you go outside, like, oh, mister, please. I don't have that issue at all. But watch this. Have you ever killed a moth?
Yeah, sure I have.
You've killed a moth, right? Have you ever killed a butterfly?
No, you always try to protect the little butterfly.
You're the first person. You're the first person I had actually be honest to say they've killed a butterfly. I'm sure I've killed one, but not on purpose, right?
No, I'm saying I don't think I've ever tried to kill one. I think I've always tried to preserve it.
So look at you and I, right? The moth, and the butterfly. Not that you look better than me, but the perception is it's dark and it's scary, so I don't understand it. So let me fear it. So then the media goes, the black man in trouble. Oh, black man. Oh, black. Oh. So you've got this bubble now of all these moths, and it's scary. And then if you don't know any black people, like if your life doesn't incorporate a lot of black people in your life, and the only black people you know are what you see on TV, you think
you're gonna follow that narrative.
You follow that narrative. It's the moth and the butterfly, man. I my mom, and she's like, that makes so much sense. And so I'm trying to change that all the time.
By the way, and literally people should go look up. I forget what the name of the moths, but if you want to see how beautiful moth can be, moths are so flipping beautiful.
Right.
So
they
beautiful.
Really are, aren't they?
And there are,
but you got to get to know them. You got to get to know them in order to figure that out, right?
There are some moths that are much more beautiful than a butterfly. Their textures and their colors are insane. You know, it's interesting to see. I grew up. My parents. It's so funny. Like I grew up where I was the odd man out. A lot of the schools I went to, I was white and everybody else was black or Hispanic.
Right.
And I got jumped for the color of my skin. I had to fight people. I had people call me cracker. I got treated a certain way because of the skin color. I remember crying. My mom knows this. I remember crying and saying, I just wish I was black. Because I just don't want to be, I don't want to be that white kid in school all the time. They hate on me. They hate me all the time. They always making comments. And so it's interesting, like having that experience is so I can somewhat relate, right? Like I didn't have the experience where I grew up in, like, for example, New England. I never saw hardly any other black people, and I always saw white people, and I can't relate to that at all. I can kind of relate in some ways because I remember thinking I want my skin color to change. You know, I remember thinking I just wish they would just stop talking about me like that, that kind of thing. And I'm not saying I can relate in all aspects, because of course I can't. But I do want to say, like, in some ways, I remember back to my childhood experiences of growing up. And by the way, one of the places I grew up was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And
you already know this.
I went to a school called Kendall Whittier.
Okay.
It was in a bad part of Tulsa. And I could, like, for example, my friends, their nicknames were Boozy. I had a kid named Boozy. Boozy, he's a kid. Why is his name Boozy? What's his name got to do with drinking?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it was kind of like a bad neighborhood. It was just like, that's the the neighborhood we lived in. And so I grew up like experiencing all of these things. And when I was in middle school, I had these friends, Dennis and Dwight Brown. And when I moved back to Louisiana, I ended up living with them and their mother, Cecilia. And we used to always joke, because they're a black family. We used to always joke. My friends would say, this is my brother. And they'd be like, that's not your brother. We can tell that's not your brother. He's like, he lives in our house. They were like, no, he doesn't. And yes, I did live in their house.
Yeah.
So they used to always joke around. So yes, every time I meet a black person, I never think of it, that narrative like you're thinking of, because I've had so many people in my life. I've grown up with so many, like, I don't think of it that way at all.
I think the same thing. Like, I don't go outside thinking like, oh no, I'm in danger. I never think like that.
Yeah. But the narrative that they use, like you're saying, if you don't have that, like, for example, I know my Bethany, her family's from New England, and they are so hyper vigilant. Like, they would be sensitive about me and you talking about this. They would could get triggered about it. And I said, well, let me just ask you a question. Like, how many, African-Americans or Hispanics did you have in your high school? And they're like, oh, like 3 or 4. I'm like, you don't know anything. You're completely numb. No wonder you're spun up in the narrative, because you've never lived in an environment where y'all live together.
There you go.
You're caught up in it. You think you're triggered. The whole reason you're triggered is because you aren't close enough to it. People like my family's from Baton Rouge, There's a lot of racism in Baton Rouge, both ways.
Both ways.
Both
man.
ways.
Bro, let me give you the other side of your coin.
Yeah.
You talk about you in school, right? So
yeah.
I come from a little country town. There's literally a black side of town and a white side of town. Yeah. You could go over there, but it was always weird.
Right.
So when my mom said, we're moving, I'm getting divorced from your dad, we're going to start fresh. We moved to Lawton, Oklahoma. I don't know if you've ever been to Lawton before, but that's when her and my stepdad met, right? And so we went from this little country town where everything was like that to a more diverse town. And the first thing my mother told us when we got there, she said, you're going to start using proper English. You're going to stop saying flow and say floor and do that kind of stuff, right? Because I want you to get an education. I want you to make it. So the first bit of racism that I started experiencing because of that was, oh, you think you white? Oh, you act white. Because I wanted to be proper, right?
Yeah, they can't stand.
They can't stand that, right? So the racism I experienced was from my own people, like, oh, well, you think you better than us because you want to be white. No. That's not it at all. I want to be proper, excel, right? Because I already had this country twang to my voice, so it just assumed that I was stupid because I came from a smaller place, right? Meanwhile, my intelligence was way higher, tested very high in school, right? And so that was the first thing you would experience. So I would get jumped by black kids because I thought I was white. I thought I was too, and so even now, like being black conservatives, like, oh, you on the time. Oh, you think, oh, the white man, this. I look back on my life and white people have been pretty good to me. I've had plenty of instances where I've encountered some real racism, like some real, I hate you because of the color of your skin. Matter of fact, when I went to Louisiana recently, I encountered a couple of people like that. But it's so small compared to the amount of white people who treat me right. When I lived in Hawaii, I would do shows. Majority of people at my show were white. The same brothers and sisters didn't want to buy my album. They're like, I don't know you, right? So it's always like this crab in the barrel mentality. And
I was going to say crab bucket.
That's exactly what it is. And so most of the black people I know are like me. They're like just like me, like they want more than what they had. And I'm not saying don't be yourself. I'm not saying talk the way you want to talk. But what I'm saying is don't play the race card because you think it's because of the way you're doing a certain thing, or you think it's because of your skin, the way you're being treated. That's not it at all. It's the way you carry yourself at the end of the day, man. People ask me and say, do you prefer to be called black or African American? I said, man, I'm black and I love being black. Really? I would never call anybody black. I said, why? I said, I'm not from Africa. I said, I've got ancestors from Africa. I said, I ain't never been to Africa. I said, you know what I am? I'm an American. That's what I am. What? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, man, now I'm triggered the black and the white, right? Because now I'm not African American. I'm black, man. I love being black. I wake up in the morning. I love being black. There's nothing I don't like about being black. With all the struggle involved, and I know that there's a difference. I know that I get treated different sometimes, but I don't care. I love it, man. I love being American. I love being black, period. And that's all it is to it, man.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret that's probably not such a secret. I personally don't think I know a white man who doesn't on some level kind of wish that they were black at some point in their life. I'm serious.
Really?
I'm serious. I swear to God. I swear to God.
So
I am not lying. I can tell you.
I can see that.
I know for a fact.
It's something about being black, right? So let me tell you something about being black, man. There is above that I cannot explain. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was just something that's passed down from slavery or whatever, but there is something about being black that you are aware of and you love. You either love it or you don't. You hate it, right? But majority of us, there's just something, and man, I love being black, man. There's something, and you know what else I love? I love interracial couples. My wife is very light complexion compared to me, but it's funny because my wife's Spanish, right? White people think she's black, and black people think she's white. Well, she's dark to me, like her. She's darker than the palm of my hand. You know what I mean? And the black girls will be like, "Oh, you married to that white woman?" I'll just crack up. I think that's so funny. Like, and grew up in a black school with black friends. You know what I'm saying? And then
Well,
like,
there's
like, "Oh, you're black, right?" And like,
I can tell you, for example. So, number one, have you ever seen the movie The Jerk?
yep, I love the jerk, man.
Steve Martin, when he says, "I was born a poor black child," and he's got no rhythm. He's got no rhythm. I can tell you, I've been that white man going, man, they all got so much rhythm. I mean, and by the way,
see, I don't have it. I only have it when I play drums. I can't dance. I only got rhythm when I play drums, man.
Well, I was gonna say, because like for example, when I, growing up, that's what something like white people just are stiff, and we should stereotype, right? Because it's not the truth.
But not now. It ain't like that now.
No, it's not like that. But I remember growing up, like. They were just nobody really danced or anything. But whenever I went to school, all the black kids danced. Like they just danced. There was all kinds of fun happening. And I remember thinking, like, I want to try to get in on that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then the other thing is like athleticism, like everybody, and these are all the stereotypes, but everybody I know, this white goes, man, black people are just so much more athletic. They just look at them and they go, man, they're just like gods when it comes to sports. Like it's just like hard to compete. They're just so good. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then,
right.
I mean, we grew up, Eddie Murphy, Will Smith, like all the greats, Dave Chappelle, all the greats, Richard Pryor, all the greats.
Right.
You go, man, they're just so funny. They're funny, the rhythm, the dance. Come on, man. And I'm just gonna tell you, like it may be something they don't talk about a lot. They're not gonna be like, man, I do wish but I promise you, if there's a little secret, I swear to God, and we could get into
that's what it is.
We could get into the more raunchy stuff too, but I'm telling you, there is a man.
Yeah, I know.
I guarantee you, probably almost. If I probably know fewer white men that have said, "Man, that would be kind of nice to just," I'm telling you, I really mean that. I mean that genuinely. I'm not even joking.
Right.
Like, I actually can tell you this. There's a point that that's crossed their mind when they said, "I kind of would like to do that." So the grass is always greener. Sometimes, we have that kind of perspective. We go, man, they've got a lot. They've got so much going for them.
Right. I can dig it, man. It is funny, man, because that goes back to that whole thing. It's like, you fear what you don't understand, but at the same time, you kind of admire it a little bit,
Yeah.
And, in the same vein, like, there's the belief in our community is like, oh, white people have it easy, and that's not true at all.
I grew up on food stamps and thrift shop clothing, my friend.
Me too.
My parents,
that's what I'm saying.
My parents did not feel like they caught a break on any level. I could tell you, like I grew up in a trailer park. I was homeless as a kid. I don't remember being like people just rushing to help us when we were homeless. Like I don't remember that.
Right.
So when people do that a lot,
misunderstanding that.
I remember thinking like, hey,
man.
People, it's hard, for example, to grow up in poverty as a white person.
Right.
And hear hear the stories and hear the defense and hear all that and go, I don't remember you when I was a kid. I don't remember. We didn't have anything. I mean, we were broke, poor, evicted. We were lighting our house with candles, eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Bro,
like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
when you say white
and
privilege,
then that argument about white privilege, right? They're like, oh, all white people are white privilege. No, they're not. And then they're like, oh, all white guilt. I have a buddy, real dear friend of mine. He's starting to develop this white guilt. I'm like, where's that coming from? What's wrong with you, man? You don't owe nobody nothing. You didn't have no slaves. That ain't got nothing to do with you, man. Like all of a sudden, I really can't stand white people. I'm like, you white. What you mean you can't stand white people? You white. What are you talking about, man? Well, just the way we've done y'all. I'm like, have you ever done me wrong? No, I said, so shut up, man. I don't even want to hear that, man. That's not a thing. It's not a thing.
And I'm glad we're talking about it because the sensitivity is too much. It's too much, y'all. Like,
It's
I remember we used to
way too
all
much.
be able to joke around. I remember Cat Williams, when he did his skit and he talked about he laid into the
Right.
Asians, the Mexicans, the black people, the white people. It was hilarious. And I remember we were all laughing.
And now you
like,
can't
"That's
say
so
none of
true."
that.
It's crazy.
And then
My
like
son
even
Cohen,
like
Cohen,
I can
Cohen,
say,
Cohen, come here real quick. I want you to see my son Cohen. He just got home from school, so he wants to come say hi. This is my kiddo.
hey, what's up, man? How
Did
you
have a
doing,
good
man?
day? Here, you can. I'm gonna let you hear.
Oh, you can't hear me.
Jazz. Oh, hold on.
Hi, Jazz.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna. He's not gonna be able to hear because for some reason the preferences here. You gotta go. Okay. Well, listen. I'll be done here in just a second, and I'll come out there and we can do something fun together. Okay? Yeah. Let's play Minecraft. All right. I love you. Let's play Minecraft. All right. I love you. Okay.
It's all good, man. Yeah,
you hear
man. Did you want to mention the class giveaway?
Yes. So that's it. So let's do that. Let's wrap it up. This has been too fun. Obviously, you and
I know,
can
man.
we could
gotta
have
do this
fun
again,
together.
man.
Yeah,
man. We definitely got.
we need to go
again,
shoot.
man.
We need to go shooting together. Number one, we need
I'm
to get
ready,
together
man.
on some art projects.
Let me know, man.
We have some opportunities there.
Let me know, man.
And for the listeners who are still with us, tell us how can they get connected with you? Drop a website for them, and we'll make sure to put links in here too. But drop a website so they know where to contact you, and let's also get an opportunity to talk about the free class.
Sure, absolutely, man. So there's so many ways to contact me, but for the most part, if you're interested in my artwork, if you see some of this crazy stuff I got going on behind me, I've been making my living as an artist for 21 years professionally. Love it. I do all sorts of commissions. You can go to my website. It's jazdavis.com. Jazz has one Z and not two, so that's JAZ Davis.com. That's the easiest way to find me. On Instagram, I'm Jaz Davis Artworks. Drop by, say hello. Always love to talk about art. If you are interested in any of our firearms classes, or just got some general questions about firearms from somebody who's going to keep it straight with you, love to chat with you about that. Our company is called American Ride Defensive Solutions. Our website is american-ride.com. You can find us there. We don't have anything set up on Instagram or anything like that. If you want to just give us a call, number's 512 649-0355. And yeah, man, we'd love to see you come out to the range. And like I said, we don't let everybody out, so consider it an honor if you are allowed to come out and train with us, because we don't let everybody come out. And those are probably the easiest two methods if you want to get with us.
That's great, man. And then when you said free class, you talking about my free class or your free class?
Both, actually, man. So I know that I had spoke to John about donating classes to you guys, man. So yeah. You want to talk about that?
Yes, tell our listeners about that.
Give me 1 second. Let me grab a training certificate. 1 second.
Okay, perfect.
Make that mushy. That's a good boy. Good boy. It's been pretty good, man. I'm surprised he hadn't made up any crazy noise or nothing.
Yeah,
so,
he's doing really good.
All right. Yeah, man. I got him behind that wall there, but all right, man. So as a public service to your listeners, man, we want to give away 2 of these training vouchers. It says 150 on it. Our average one-on-one class, a private one-on-one class, is about 2 hours long. It costs $1 if you don't have your own fire. Sorry again. It's about 2 hours, 3 hours long. It costs $150 if you have your own firearm and ammunition. If you don't have either or, it adds a $50 to it. So the average one-on-one class is about $200. And depending on what you want to learn and what you want to do, we kind of tailor those classes according to you. So we wanted to give these 2 of these to you to give to your listeners, however you want to do it. Once they receive them, they can redeem them by giving us a call. We'll set them up on a schedule, and they can actually come out to San Marcos and shoot with us for a little bit for free, and enjoy some of those perks as well, man. we offer so many different types of firearms classes, everything from pistol to rifle classes. We also do home defense classes. And so even that, you could actually use that as a home defense. Let's say you wanted us to come and evaluate your space. You could do one of these. I believe the cost on that is it's a $300 course for us to come by your $300 cost for us to come by either your home or your business and give you some firearms training. And just kind of the advantage to doing something like that. We talk about people not practicing, right? They'll do stuff and they'll like get a gun, but they don't practice and they don't train for a long time. The most valuable training you can get is actually in your own home or in your own space. So we actually come to you with some CO2 pistols. They don't have any live ammunition, but they simulate the feeling of recoil, so you can actually see what it feels like. And then we actually give you a plan that you can practice in your home space, and which makes it makes you a little bit better prepared if you do get into something like that. But aside from that, yeah, man, that's something that we do a whole lot of those. And like I said, man, I'm not kidding when I say just contact us if you just have a question about firearms, man. We'd rather you be safe and get the right information from somebody who has absolutely nothing to gain from telling you the truth than just going out there and figuring it out on your own.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep, I lost you for a second. Yep.
Sorry. Yeah, I was actually dying over there. I was choking so badly trying to hold it back. You were on a roll. You were on a roll, and I had something get caught in my throat, and I could not get it to just relax. So I had to go on.
You want me to do it again, or you good?
You did great. You don't need me. You did perfect. I'm actually, first of all, the offer. Thank you so much, Jaz. Thank you so much. So listeners, that's a huge value for these listeners.
Sure.
And
man.
Second of all, I want to get you out to my house, because that experience of the in-home training makes so much sense. Man. And I've never heard of an offer like that. So I am so grateful to hear that. I want to get you out to my house and we can run through some stuff. I love the idea.
Sure, absolutely, man.
Being in your own home makes so much sense. The defense is going to happen there or probably in your vehicle, right?
Yeah, man.
And I love it. Thank you so much. So
we actually we evaluate your current situation. We help you develop a plan for it, and then we practice that plan. So it's divided up into 3 sections. And so when we leave, you got some really good information, some knowledge. Makes it just so you're more prepared, man.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Jaz.
Thanks for having me.
The reason I mentioned, absolutely, dude, this has been a blast. Again, we're going to have you back. And I really would love, keep us updated with Alex too.
Will do. Absolutely.
Because, I love the idea of you guys, her getting to a point where she can accept you more.
Sure.
And where you guys can be closer. That just seems so good. And I just love to be,
I'm optimistic, man. It's going to happen, man.
Yeah. I love what you said. You said, I have faith. I have faith that it's going to happen. Yeah. And that's how you roll. I can tell your personality. Right. And I actually really believe in it, man. Kind of faith, that unwavering faith, that's what faith is. Faith isn't believing in it when you want to. Faith is believing in it always and just know.
Man. Yeah, man.
So
cool, man.
Thank you so much for that. And then the reason I asked about the class, I thought maybe John had mentioned to you or something. Well, we're actually offering a free class. We have 3 shifts to revolutionize your parenting. So shameless plug here.
Yeah, man. Absolutely, man.
These are 3 simple shifts. They're kind of mental shifts. They're mental shifts that you can make as a dad. And when you make these, they're going to revolutionize how you parent. They're going to bring your kids in closer. You're going to have more cooperation. You're going to gain more respect and admiration, and you're going to have an impact on your kids in a way that maybe you haven't had before.
Mm-hmm.
It's really helping your children discipline from the inside out, and it's giving you the mindset you need to help invite. This is the way we like to say, invite behavior change. So if you have challenges with your children and you don't know what to do sometimes, this kind of parenting workshop is perfect for you. Those are every Wednesday. Just go to the website, bedadly.com. You can sign up for the class. And I think that's all we got for you guys today, man. This has just been awesome. I think we hit all the hot buttons. We hit
I
every
think so.
hot
The hot
button
and the
they
cold
had.
button. Yeah, we made everybody mad today.
We made everybody mad.
Everybody mad today. So cool.
So y'all can all get along with the American ride, because that's where we're at.
That's right.
We're all in the same boat.
That's it. We're all in the same boat, baby.
Everybody's in the same boat. So anyways,
Yeah,
I
man.
love what we did here today.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you so much, Jazz. Thank you for who you are. And we so appreciate you, man.
Likewise, man. And just on the last little note, man, I think Be Dadly is a great concept. I wish there was something like this when I was younger. Man, I wish you all the best, and anything we can do to help, man, we're all about it. And we look forward to working with you in the future. So cool, man. Thanks for having us.
That's great. Thanks, Jazz.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you've received some value from it, please share it with other dads and consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll see you in the next episode. Looking for support with your fatherhood journey? Go to bedadly.com and take our Dadly Disposition quiz and learn helpful insights on how you can overcome power struggles with your kids.